Parshas Chayei Sara, according to Rebbe Nachman. They're talking about how, just to recapitulate, Abraham bought the grave for his wife Sarah from Ephron Achiti. The word Ephron, the name Ephron, who was the president of the community there, it has to do with Afar. It's an evil aspect in the Afar means earth. Ephron was the evil aspect of the earth. A person becomes depressed because he's mostly earth. Something that Rebbe Nachman didn't say here, but I heard it, from a Breslover ages hence. So, in the way to conquer, a person becomes depressed because he has a negative influence from the force of the earth, as opposed to fire, water, or air, which have different psychological effects on a person. So, in order to get out of it, the antidote, is faith. And a person has faith, he can change it from evil earth to the holy earth, and the aspect of shochen ba'aretz u'emuna, live in the land. We live in the land, we live in the earth of Israel, and that's a place where we cultivate, we shepherd faith. The aspect of earth becoming a clay as a vessel for faith, and that becomes the earth of holiness, which receives and draws all of the life force of holiness. And by means of this, a person can merit a great power, and a great power of growth and renewal, in order to grow and to blossom in a person's service of the Holy One, blessed be He, and in order to pass on and to skip over all of the obstacles that confront him and all of the roadblocks that come his way. He'll just pass right through, as opposed to being stuck on the side of the road. And like the poor Palestinians, we must remember, of course, our Palestinian brothers who, for whatever reason, are getting stuck on the side of the road. And of course, we Jews have been stuck on the side of the road more than enough, so we can understand that. I'm not making any political statements here, except the one political statement we'll make is, someday there will be peace. And the way to peace is through more Torah and more love of Israel and more love of the Jews, and building the temple. And once we build the temple, there'll be peace for the Arabs, and peace, and it'll be good for the whole world. And the poor Palestinians will become rich Palestinians, and everybody will know that God is one and His name is one. We go back to the subject here. So anyhow, we, by means of faith, and we can conquer depression, and we can grow, and we can skip over all of the obstacles and pass through the roadblocks. I'm not going to go down that road again. And in order not to look at anything in the world except for faith, that the only thing that exists in the world is really faith. Faith is the aspect of the great power, and the great power of growth, and the great, as explained in the Likutei Moharan, the book of Rebbe Nachman, and Moharan, not moron, but Moharan. And by means of this, Abraham bought the cave of the patriarchs, the Marat Machpelah, as it's called, from Ephron. That's why Abraham bought it from Ephron, because Ephron is the klipa, the evil force, which comes before the fruit. In order to eat a fruit, you got to peel it. So you have to go first through the peel, remove the obstacle, and then you can get to the fruit. So that's why Abraham had to buy the grave of his holy wife from Ephron, who was not a good man. We don't know any details about this, but he's not, in the Talmudic literature, he's not looked upon as the most positive of influences, to say the least. So by means of this, a person can. Why is it called Marta Machpelah? Machpelah means increasing, and we brought the power of increase. It has to do with growth. Machpelah. He bought the power of growth from Ephron. So the homily is like this: that the husk, the peel, is before the fruit, and by means of the cave of increase, he could only buy it by going through the husk and passing on to faith. This is the aspect of emunah, the aspect of the great power, the power of growth. Faith is the power of growth. That's the secret. You want to grow, you need faith. You want to grow, you need faith. And by means of this, you can change from Ephron, from which is the side of death, and the opposite of life, and you can go into life and growth. This is the aspect of the contamination of the snake, of sadness, of depression, and by means of getting through it, getting through of all the exile, a person, which is by Ephron, a person can get through the earth, get out of his depression, and he can change it, and he can go forward. Because for everything in holiness, God created something corresponding in unholiness. And Abraham, he is the head of the believers. He is the chief believer. And he managed to merit, to bring forth the holiness, the high holiness from the depths of the earth, and create it into a cave in the earth of machpelah, which means turning it over and transforming it into growth. And lachpil, it has to do with multiplying and being fruitful and growing. So the cave of the patriarchs is machpelah, which has to do with growth and growing. And Abraham married and when he was an old man, he married to do this. Because it says in the 24th chapter that Abraham became old. But even in it wasn't like old like he becomes an idiot. It was like old like he becomes old and better, like fine wine. Because Abraham, he was the first to understand the holiness of the land of Israel. And how did he do it? Through faith, because he believed. Because it was the first inheritance that he'd received in the land of Israel was this very grave. That was the beginning of the Jews' inheritance of the land of Israel, which just grew and grew until the land of Israel is finally the inheritance for 600,000 for all of the people of Israel. And it's all through faith. And by means of faith, we'll merit the land of Israel.